Hi everyone, thanks for inviting me to speak to you today. I'm Ellie Harrison and I'm the current chair of Get Glasgow Moving. We are a volunteer-run campaign set up in 2016 to demand better public transport in Glasgow and beyond for all the reasons listed here: social, environmental and economic. Specifically, we want to see fully integrated public transport. That means our buses, trains and subway being planned and coordinated to work together in harmony to serve all our communities. We want quick, efficient interchanges with one simple and affordable ticket for use across all transport modes. We want public transport that is so good that everyone can fully participate in our society and our economy without needing to own a car. This is how public transport is meant to work, and this is how it does work in many European countries. Switzerland, Austria, Germany are all great examples where public transport is still publicly planned and controlled. The only reason we failed to deliver this in Scotland is because of the deregulation and privatisation of our buses and trains, which happened in the 1980s and 1990s, which has left us with too many competing private bus companies running different parts of the network. Buses are now run for profit and not as a public service. There is no central planning and coordination of timetables and tickets, and we have lost literally millions of miles of routes since deregulation. But worst of all, there is no regulation on fares. Most buses in Scotland are now a total rip-off. This shows how a single on First Glasgow compares with buses in Edinburgh and London, where they are still publicly owned and controlled. And for those of you stuck with privatised buses in rural areas, you'll know that fares can get into double figures. We've created a situation where it is cheaper for most people to buy a car, which is a total disaster for our climate. And what's more, this is a really inefficient and undemocratic use of public money. We are paying so much more for a worse service. We currently give £300 million per year to private bus companies in Scotland with absolutely no say over the routes that they run. This is madness and it needs to stop. We know that the transport sector is by far the biggest contributor to climate change, and it is the only sector that is still increasing its emissions. It is therefore where we must make the most radical demands. Many councils across Scotland have committed to be carbon neutral by 2030. This is in line with the IPCC's demand for rapid, far-reaching and unprecedented changes to all aspects of society before 2030 in order to avoid dangerous climate change. We cannot afford to wait until 2045. We must instead aim to switch all of our journeys to sustainable means, walking, cycling or public transport, within the next 10 years. This will require a massive step change in the quality, availability and reliability of our public transport. And the only way to deliver this is by taking it all back into public control and starting to treat it as the essential public service that it is. And because Scotland is such a geographically diverse country, this needs to be done at a regional level by re-empowering and properly funding our regional transport authorities so that they are the ones responsible for planning, coordinating and delivering the services that we need. This report clearly sets out the action necessary to deliver this step change in the next 10 years, and I urge the Assembly to adopt all of its recommendations. To briefly summarise, we need to set minimum service standards so that no matter where you live, you're guaranteed a high quality service. We need to deliver perfect integration between transport modes with 3-minute interchanges like they're able to deliver in Switzerland. And finally, most importantly, all regional public transport needs to be completely free at the point of use. This is happening in many towns and cities across the world, in France, in the US, in Estonia, in Luxembourg, and it is the only way to deliver modal shift on the scale that is necessary and to persuade those so accustomed to driving to give up their cars. Free public transport has to be central to the massive overhaul and rebranding of our public transport network that will be necessary after the pandemic to get people back on the bus.